This episode of Vintage Stormfront Freaks has been previously recorded.
Jessica Lebel is joining us here from Colorado. She's a meteorologist for KDVR 31. And as we heard, also for KWGN2 out of Denver. Now, she's a meteorologist for both of these stations. It's her native state. She was born in Denver, Colorado. And after stints in Grand Junction and Colorado Springs, she returned to Denver in 2017. Now, she earned a bachelor's degree in atmospheric science from the University of Kansas with an emphasis in news media forecasting. That's so cool they put those things together. You know,
Yeah.
I think, Jessica, especially for somebody in television, I mean, this is the best way to go. So let me ask you this. What made you choose University of Kansas versus, let's say, somewhere in Colorado?
Oh, great question. So CU and CSU don't have undergrad meteorology programs. So I knew
Okay.
I wanted a big state school. I wanted the big college sports, the whole experience. So I looked at schools around the area that were close, and KU was one of them. I toured University of Nebraska. I
Yes.
applied to Mizzou. And when I went to KU, I just fell in love with it. It's only about a 9-hour drive from me here in Denver. The atmospheric science program there is very small. I only graduated with about 8 people, but
Oh my
I loved
goodness.
it. I know. And in the heart of really Tornado Alley, that's something I also really loved. So I really enjoyed my time there.
It's a beautiful campus.
Oh, gorgeous. I
Yeah.
went there, I think in the fall, and it was
Oh,
just fantastic. They have the fountains going, and everything was just really beautiful. And so, yeah, I'm really happy I chose that.
Oh, that's awesome. Did you chase when you were out there?
Yes. So a lot of kids, it was very common for us to ask our teacher to get out a few minutes
Yeah.
early to go chase. I only went a few times. We usually went down towards the Wichita area to chase some storms. But yeah, that was very popular for a lot of kids that went to school there. And really, most of the kids I graduated with were from Kansas. So they kind of grew up even through high school being interested in weather and chasing. It was just a matter of who was going to risk their car in hail damage.
Exactly.
now, if you graduated with 8 people, was there an AMS chapter there for a student chapter?
So there was, yeah, it was
Oh,
very
cool.
small. There was about 20 of us, I think, through all the grades that were in this AMS chapter. And I think something that's really cool and I think unique about my graduating class was there was only one male and all the rest of us were females, which I thought was really cool.
I'm sure he did too.
Of course they
Who
did.
knows?
Wow, we've come such a long way. It makes me really happy.
I know.
I was
yeah,
like, I think
and
the
I just
only
loved it.
female. Yeah.
I know, and that's what a lot of people tell me back in the day. You know, it wasn't popular for women to go into this, but what I saw going through school is I think it's really changing, and it was fun to have a lot of female classmates. You know, we all did our homework together and just really could relate to one another as a woman in science. So it was really, really great.
Now, were all of them wanting to go into broadcasting, or were some of them going
No,
different
only a
directions?
few of us. Yeah, one gal did hydrometeorology. So KU was really interesting because they had these different like emphasis majors that you could choose. So I did the emphasis in media forecasting. So basically to graduate, I had to take a reporting class, a media writing class, and then just a class about how to find out information because I knew I wanted to go the more broadcast route. We had an air pollution one, we had a hydrometeorology one. So there were all these different groups that you could choose from. And then I think we just had a general meteorology one. So really all of us went in different directions, which is really cool to see now.
Oh, I bet.
So one of the questions we always ask everybody is, so why meteorology? Why'd you decide? What is it that something that happened in your life that made you decide to go into weather?
So the one event for me that I can think of growing up that made me realize how cool weather really is was the blizzard of 2003. I don't know if you guys have heard of that one, but in Denver, it dropped about 3 feet of snow at my parents' house. So I grew up in Littleton, which is sort of on the south side of Denver. It's about 20 minutes from downtown. And we had 2 weeks of spring break. So I was in elementary school then, and I remember 1 week we had spring break, and then the blizzard was the next week, and we didn't have school for a whole week because that's how much it kind of shut down the city. And of course, in Denver, it snows quite a bit, so we have the resources to be able to clear out snow. But that's just how devastating that storm was, is it really shut everything down for about a week. But as a kid during that storm, it was a lot of fun. We didn't have to go to school. We were able to, build snow forts and dig each other out to our neighbor's house so we could play with the other kids in the neighborhood. But I remember thinking, this is unbelievable, and I've never seen anything like this. So that was kind of the first event for me that I really realized how cool weather was and how impactful it could be. And it's funny now looking back on it, because snow is definitely my favorite thing to forecast. It's my favorite thing to be out in our storm chasing truck in. So I am just a huge snow lover, and maybe it traces back to that event and having a lot of snow days growing up. But that was the one event. And then when I got to high school, I just realized, I love math and science. So I wanted to choose something where I was doing something in those fields, and it just seemed like the right fit for me. So I never looked back.
Yeah.
You guys have a storm chasing truck?
Yes. So we call it our pinpoint weather beast, which is really fun because we're like, hey, we're going out in the beast. And that's how we talk about it on air. Like, hey, I'm live in the beast tonight, and we can go live from inside the truck, which is really cool. So if I'm out on the plains of Colorado chasing severe thunderstorms and there's lightning around, I can be live inside the car, which is great.
Yeah.
So we don't have to kill our live shots just because there's a lightning threat or something like that. But it is this huge Chevy Silverado that's lifted a little bit, and they decked it out, and it actually growls like a beast. So we bring that.
That's
it's
scary.
so much fun. It is so much fun. People are scared of it, I think. I'm scared to drive it. A lot of viewers ask.
Oh, you
if I
drive it?
I don't. I've driven it in a parking lot one time for like a promo shoot.
Yeah.
I'm too scared. It's too big.
Is that where
but
the
we bring it
accident
to
happened?
schools. No. Oh, we bring it to schools a lot, and kids love the truck. So that's really, a lot of people know our station because they know about the beast.
Oh, that is so cool. Does
Yeah,
it really
it's so
growl?
fun.
So hey,
It does, yeah.
Jessica,
Oh my God.
tell people, what's the secret to being able to get your first jobs in your home state and now your home city? Well, what's the secret? Share the wealth.
Yeah, great question. So I'm still a little bit shocked that I even made it home to Denver. I feel very, very thankful to be here. I love Colorado with my whole heart. It's my home state, and it was my goal to make it to Denver, really, when I started in this industry. And the best advice I can give to people, especially going through school and going the broadcast route, is just to network. So I reached out to Denver meteorologists. I was able to go shadow them. I actually shadowed at every single station except mine before I got hired at Fox in the city beforehand, just reaching out to meteorologists. And they all were so generous to me when I was a student. I just wanted to ask them questions and see what their job is like and see what being a meteorologist in Denver really was like. And I ended up meeting a guy at a school career fair that was actually for the journalism department that I decided to go to. And he put me in contact with the news director in Grand Junction. And I knew that I was going to have to start probably in a smaller town. So I just reached out, and that's how I got started there. And I was extremely lucky. The television station I was working for in Grand Junction in Colorado Springs, they didn't really do contracts for a lot of their just reporters and newer, younger people. So when I was ready to move on from Colorado Springs, I went to, or should I say Grand Junction, I went to Colorado Springs knowing that there would be a lot more weather. So the Western Slope, it's very deserty, and there's not a whole lot of severe weather. There is some snow. Occasionally we'll get a severe thunderstorm or two, but it's definitely a lot crazier on the Front Range. So I knew I wanted to make it over to this side of the Rockies as fast as I could. And when I got to Colorado Springs, I really learned how crazy the weather is here in Colorado.
Did you visit the Air Force Academy?
Of course. Yeah, it's gorgeous. I went to
yeah.
a football game. It's amazing.
Yeah.
The Thunderbirds would fly over all the time. That's one of the things I miss most about Colorado Springs.
That's cool.
Is all of the jets that were training. We'd be out and about, and they would just be flying and practicing, and the Thunderbirds would fly overhead. So that's one of the things I miss most about it.
Oh, you're so lucky.
So when you were shadowing at the Denver stations, you were basically amassing information, all their secrets. So when you finally got back there,
Exactly. No, I just asked. I wanted them to keep it real with me and really let me know what it's like to be a real broadcast meteorologist. And I think it's cool because I'm sort of on that other side now as a broadcast meteorologist, and I get to do a lot of the school outreach for my station. And I do a lot of career days at middle schools. So I get to intern, tell kids, you know, what it's really like to be a broadcast meteorologist, just like those mentors and other meteorologists in Denver did for me when I was going through school. So it's really cool to be on the other side of it. But they were all so generous. And as you guys know, it's a small, tight-knit community. So I feel like when someone finds out you're going into meteorology, they want to do anything they can to help you in your journey. And I think that's really awesome.
So what's the kind of advice you can give young people that are trying to break into meteorology today? Now you said you're on the other side. So what kind of information are you passing along?
So one of the big things, and I think a lot of people don't realize how much this can play into broadcast meteorology, is you just have to have a thick skin. You know, you're going to have consultants telling you what they want you to do. You're going to have bosses telling you how you should do things. But more importantly, you're going to have mean viewers who are going to tell you what they think of your hair and your clothes and how you pronounced a word and whatever it may be. And they're calling the station, they're emailing the station. And I didn't really realize how much flack people on TV get until I was in the industry. So I think just warning them about that and just also letting them know we're not perfect. We're just normal humans. We're going to mess up our words sometimes. We're going to, you know, be looking at the wrong camera when the camera's on us. There's all these little things that can go wrong in a newscast, but you just have to learn to brush it off and just know that you're a normal human, and hopefully people will accept that.
So you mess up. What's the worst thing you've ever said on the air?
Oh, goodness. I don't think I've said anything super bad. I remember one morning, here's a story. I was filling in for the morning guy. And actually, since I started in this business, I've been the weekend meteorologist. So I'm never used to working mornings when I have to fill in. And I remember it was our 4:30 a.m. hit. And I was trying to say carbon copy. And I said copy carbon. And I was like, wait a second. And I remember that moment because I paused and I was like, you know what? It's 4:30 in the morning. I can't quite get my thoughts together just yet.
That's nothing. You got to say,
really,
like,
that's pretty mild.
if you're going to say warm air mass, don't drop air.
Oh yeah, that would be
man. I've said that. I've said it all, man.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I one time was on the desk in Grand Junction, and I'm terrified of spiders. And we were doing the tag at the end of my weather forecast, and there was a spider on its web coming down in front of my face, maybe a few inches from it.
No.
Yeah. And I was debating, and I was newer at this point. I'd only been in the industry a few months. So, you know how when you first start out, you think you have to ignore everything that's happening and just keep going on. So that's what I did. But it dropped on the desk in front of us, and it was crawling around. So I remember looking back at the hit, and I kept following it with my eyes. And I looked kind of concerned, like I had really wide eyes, and I was definitely concerned about something, but I never brought it up to the viewers. But I think now I would say something, oh, there's a spider, you know, look at that. And viewers would be able to relate more, but
that is so true, Jessica. So true, because you do that. I remember the same thing at the Weather Channel, and we've had squirrels in the studio, we've had birds in the studio, spiders, flies, bees, wasps, everything in there. The same thing, because the people see it, and when it's live, they see what's going on, and if you ignore it, they're like, "How can you ignore that? There's a spider right in front of your face."
Exactly.
So with you, it's like you just acknowledge it and move on.
Oh, it's so
and you
funny.
ignore it.
So Jessica, what's the most nervous you've been on air? What's the moment that
oh, that's a good question.
You had the sweaty palms and you were done and you totally couldn't remember what you even just said?
Oh goodness. Let's see. We had a few wildfires start when I was down in Colorado Springs, and you know, it was always a panic at first to get on air, and we would do a cut-in for it because obviously in Colorado Springs, there was the Waldo Canyon fire and the Black Forest fire. So anytime there is a wildfire down in that area, people are a little bit anxious about it and they want to know what's going on. So we try to alert the public as fast as possible. So I remember being in our newsroom and these fires would break out, and our news director would just say, all right, get on air right now. And it's at the moment where you don't know any information about the fire. And I remember that happening several times. And you're just like, okay, well, I'm talking about this wildfire. Here it is. We don't know how big it is. We don't know what caused it. but you're just kind of up there talking until your news director lets you know that you don't need to talk anymore. So I would say situations like that are just kind of out of the blue and you don't have all the information that you want. I've been in a few blizzards where we're in the car and we can't see a few feet in front of us. And it gets to the point where I'm like, okay, we're going to pull over here because, you know, we're not safe. It doesn't necessarily make me scared or nervous.
Were you on the air at the time?
There has been situations, yeah.
Okay.
Because we can go live in our Pinpoint Weather Beast. So there's been times where we're like, okay, we're going to pull over. There was one time, and obviously that truck is something we use a lot for marketing at our station. And we were trying to chase down some hail damage. And there was this big hailstorm. It was last year in Aurora, Colorado. And they had tennis ball sized hail that was just smashing out everyone's windshields. And I'm sure you guys have seen some of the hailstorms we've seen here in Colorado. They're pretty devastating. And we were taking the Pinpoint Weather Beast to go find some of the damage to get it on air because we were interrupting whatever show was on and doing a live cut-in. And all of a sudden we had a tennis ball sized hailstone drop on our windshield and just crack it all the way across. And I remember them tossing to me right after that. And I just was like, I am so sorry. We cracked the windshield of the Beast. We're trying to get out of this storm and find the damage.
Dangerous.
Yeah. That was one of the situations where I'm like, am I in trouble? Like, I don't want to damage our Beast. We need to get south.
Are you calling it the Pinpoint Weather Beast or Pimped Out Weather Beast?
I wish Pimped Out, but it's Pinpoint.
No spinners.
That's our team brand.
Hubcaps
Pinpoint
spin.
Weather.
The Stormfront Freaks is now available on the Weather Store. Come shop our catalog of shirts, hats, and hoodies, all with our Stormfront Freaks logo and Outbreak logo. Plus, you'll find all your other favorite weather geek and storm chasing gear, footwear, and accessories. Visit the Weather Store at thewxstore.com, the exclusive supplier of the Stormfront Freaks.
Mesoscaleforecast.com brings us StormNet, a state-of-the-art deep learning model designed to revolutionize severe weather forecasting. The innovative tool is tailored to provide unparalleled real-time predictions of severe weather events, including probability of wind, hail, and tornadoes. And now they've added Hurricane Vision, a cutting-edge hurricane track and intensity prediction system that uses deep artificial intelligence to predict the track and future intensity of tropical cyclones. You've seen us use it on our Stormfront Freaks live outbreak coverage with meteorologist Stormcat 5. Now you can use it as well. Visit Mesoscaleforecast.com and access live data subscriptions. Plus, when you enter the code Stormfront, you'll receive a 10% discount for life. Yes, for life. Go to Mesoscaleforecast.com.
Eddie Sheerr. Eddie is NTV's chief meteorologist in Newfoundland, Canada. Eddie's career as a meteorologist brought him to TV stations. Listen to this, down by you, Jen. Macon, Georgia, and Grand Junction, Colorado, before he joined the NTV news team in 2013. He has a Bachelor of Science in Meteorology from Plymouth State University in New Hampshire. So welcome, Eddie. Thanks for joining the show. So this is the thought on everybody's mind. You go from having a job in Boulder, Colorado, and here in the U.S., you're from the U.S. Why the heck did you go north to Canada to be a TV meteorologist?
It was an interesting opportunity presented itself. I had been working in Grand Junction, I think, for 4 years. I think I moved out there for Macon in 2009. And it's all kind of a blur now because I've been in the industry for so long. But yeah, then my contract was coming to an end in Grand Junction, and it was time to look for, some other opportunities. And I got the opportunity through a classmate, actually, who I went to Plymouth. He called me one day when I was looking for work, and he's like, have you ever heard of Newfoundland? I was like, no. He said, have you ever heard of St. John's? I was like, no. He's like, well, if you look on a map, it's a big island that sticks out past Nova Scotia, and St. John's is on the farthest east point on that island. And I was like, okay. And I was engaged at the time, and I was like, I don't know about this. But I was like, I'm interested. I was like, are they interested? And they ended up flying me out here for an interview.
Wow.
And The weather in St. John's and typically Newfoundland in May is really generally terrible. It's foggy a lot. We have a lot of freezing drizzle in May. It's typically not sunny here in May very often, and it's very cold. We can have days in May where it's 1 Celsius, so 33, 34 degrees, and that's not uncommon, even towards the end of May. I got here in May, and
did your fiance turn into the wife then?
No. We ended up that ended up not working.
Well, that's because you went
Which
to
is part of the reason I ended up moving.
Yeah, I'm like, because there's a St. John's in the Caribbean. Pretty sure that would have worked out. Yeah. I'm just saying, you know,
a little easier to forecast, I would imagine too. So I ended up moving. They flew me out, and it was a beautiful May day. This is in Newfoundland when it's nice, is like one of the most beautiful places you'll ever see, and I was hooked. And things went well, and I moved here that following August, and I've been here now for 5 years. I met my current wife here after I think I've been here for 3 years, and we got married, and now we have a home together, and we have a daughter who's about to be a month old. So my life has definitely taken a turn that I didn't expect it to, but it's been great. It's been a great time here.
Was she from up north?
She is, yeah. She's from Newfoundland. She's from the central part of the island. So
you got to do that, because when we lived in Michigan, my wife was like, anywhere south or it's over. I'm like, okay, all right. Cincinnati.
She likes it here, but I don't think she hasn't lived anywhere else. I think it's like Stockholm syndrome. You kind of you like the weather here. You start to like it for some reason, but because you just haven't experienced anything else.
What have you found is like the biggest shock to you, besides having to say all the time?
Yeah, well, Newfoundland has its own dialect. They call it Newfoundlandese. We can get into that if you want down the line. But I think the biggest thing I've had to kind of adjust to living on an island out in the North Atlantic is like the ocean's always cold. So like no matter what the time of year is, the weather that we get may not coincide with what the calendar says. So I stopped expecting weather with the date. So like last week it was June, we're in the early June, and I was still wearing like a winter jacket. And for the first couple of years here, that would faze me. And now no, it's 35 degrees Fahrenheit, and I'm going to wear my winter jacket today, and that's how it's going to be.
That's crazy. So what's been the hardest thing to forecast or transition of forecasting for you?
The hardest thing I have forecasting wise up here is just the difference. It's the storms that track to the west of where I live when we start to get the interaction of different air masses. And that's hard enough as it is, as forecasting, frozen precipitation down in the States. You get freezing rain, ice pellets, this and that. But you get another element when the ocean's below freezing.
Yeah.
So the temperatures aloft are 10, 12 Celsius, and you get a strong northeast wind, and you get a lot of freezing rain, and you can have wintry precipitation even when you don't think there should be wintry precipitation. And the computer modeling up this way is generally not very good occasionally, so you can be surprised with storms, especially ones that form out over the ocean and kind of back their way in. I think my third or fourth winter here, we had a storm that was backing in off the Atlantic, and it was a big low, and it was a slow mover, and it had the potential to produce feet of snow. But I was looking at the guidance, and I went on air the night before, and I confidently said we're going to get I think we're going to get 6 inches of snow tomorrow into tomorrow night. We got 18 inches. So
wow,
so
that's crazy.
Yeah, and the wind was higher than it forecast, the snow was higher than forecast, and it's kind of things like that you don't forget, and it's challenges like that you're forecasting tough winter storms.
So how did the bomb cyclone, that was that term made big news in January of 2018. Mm-hmm. How did that impact you guys? Was that a huge storm for you guys, or you guys get those kind of storms, low pressure systems, right?
I mean, to be honest, we get probably more bomb cyclones per year out here than anywhere else I've lived. I would say probably more than anywhere else in Eastern North America. Okay. So and generally the ones that really hit the Northeast US hard bring us like like 10, 12 degrees Celsius or 50 degrees Fahrenheit in the middle of winter and rain. Because they're so mature by the time they get up this way. The warm air is kind of wrapped all the way around it. So it's the ones you don't hear about that give us the big snowstorms. And the ones you do hear about, we just like, people here get all riled up because there's so much like intensity with it. And that will really affect like New Brunswick and Nova Scotia more so than it will like most of Newfoundland.
I'm still amazed that you moved there from Macon. Like I'm thinking right now, Atlanta to moving there. Like that's a culture shock. That's a weather shock. That's just about everything.
It's a different world up here. Like weather wise, like if I ever moved back to the States, I would never like, if I had to forecast like 6 inches of snow, I would think it's a joke because like nothing closes here for like 15 centimeters of snow. Like it's not a big deal. Like we get 6 inches of snow or a foot and like kids could have school the next day. Like schools aren't being closed for 3 days because we get a foot of snow. Like if the snow stops at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, like you're going to work on time the next day. Like,
darn you metric guys. You're just messing with my head.
That's the biggest change probably,
drinking,
right?
I'm trying to do the calculations.
It's just, I can go back and forth, but it's taken me a solid like 5 years to get
bilingual
the metric system and not have to back convert everything.
That's pretty good.
But
So obviously, sorry, Jen. So it's very difficult to forecast snowfall amounts, and to communicate that. I think that's the biggest thing, and that's the biggest challenge for most, especially TV meteorologists that are going to be in winter conditions.
Yep.
And you have to try and it can be such a tight gradient between, hey, we might get 12 inches of snow, or we might get a 1/4 inch of ice. I mean, you don't know, and a lot depends on the track of the storm. So what's your specialty, Eddie? What do you think you're really good at when it comes to communicating, or how you communicate those kinds of things? What do you think you're good at?
I've played with communicating uncertainty since I've been here, because there's always an element of uncertainty to any forecast. And I think that I've gotten better at communicating like my thoughts on the uncertainty and not the computer's thoughts on the uncertainty, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
It's very easy to go on air and say you have model A and model B, and I don't know which one's going to be correct, but here's what they both show, and we're just going to have to wait and see what happens. I've found that people generally, at least up here, they don't like that. They like when you give them your thoughts. So I try and basically look at the ensembles, look at as much data as I can, and put a forecast into, put the context of a forecast into terms that is easily digested as possible to our viewers. And saying like, here, you're not always uncertain about every area in a forecast. Newfoundland's a big place. So generally someone's going to get snow, someone's going to get rain, and somewhere between is going to be the ice in the mix line. And I can say with reasonable certainty, like, the western side of the island, you're most likely to get your foot of snow. The eastern side of the island, like, yes, we're going to get some ice, but it's mostly going to be rain. But it's in this area where I think we're going to see the mix line could, be a little farther east than this or a little farther west than this, but this is the area where I think that's going to happen. And, be it right or wrong, I think you just have to kind of take a stand and put your own forecast out there and not so much try and rely so much on the computer model data. Because, again, I found that my viewers, when I show the model versus model, they look at that as, I don't know which one's which. It's not me trying to convey uncertainty. It's me showing them that, like, I don't know which to pick. So, it's up to you to pick. And I try to just
smartest way to do that.
What's that?
That's the smartest way to do that. It's up to you guys to pick.
Yeah.
You're wrong.
it is, but it's a great way to do it. Except when the forecast is wrong, I get yelled at. I get all sorts of messages in my Facebook box.
I like
inbox
that.
Saying, I don't know what I'm talking about.
For those of you who chose Model B, sorry, you're wrong.
Sorry.
Thank you. Those of you who chose A, party at my house. Come on.
I think like it's just I've just gotten really good at conveying the uncertainty. And I think when I watch some of the news coming out from us, especially some of the bigger cities in the Northeast, like the uncertainty isn't conveyed enough.
Yeah.
You know, everybody wants, like, you know, I want you to tell me we're going to get 6 inches of snow and there's not going to be any ice, when that's impossible to do with the developing area of low pressure, because it tracks 30, 40 miles north or west of where the computer track it is. And all of a sudden that mixed line isn't over New York City. It's up over White Plains, you know, or just up in North Jersey somewhere. So small changes in track make a very big difference. And I think that's important to try and convey when you're talking about winter.
So you said 6 inches of snow. How much is that in centimeters?
15 centimeters. Always sounds more impressive in centimeters, always.
Yeah.
That's impressive. I love that.
That is impressive.
I may use that for all kinds of stuff.
So I've got a question, Eddie. So like now going back to when you were in Colorado, what was it like experiencing the weather there? Like Lee cyclogenesis, all like the mid-latitude cyclones and like, what is your favorite type of weather? Did you go storm chasing when you were in Colorado?
Well, I lived out in Grand Junction, which is like high desert. So the weather there was sunny like 300 days a year.
Yeah.
It was lovely in the summer going in for my shift, which was like 2 to 11. And putting like 90 and sunny for 8 days in a row, and basically being able to do a forecast blindfolded. But I did enjoy forecasting the snow in Colorado. That was always fun. We didn't get a lot of thunderstorms on the western slope.
That's true.
But we did get to forecast a lot of mountain weather, and I got pretty good at forecasting Colorado mountain weather because that's pretty much where it was. In Grand Junction, we would average like 9 inches of total precipitation through the course of a year, which is not very much. So I went from forecasting in a desert, which is exceptionally, it has its challenges, obviously, because you have terrain. So you're playing with upslope, downslope winds and this, that, and the other, to, you know, here where like the weather is exceptionally challenging. And that's how it is most of the time. Easy weather is like the exception to the rule here.
So where did you grow up, Eddie?
I grew up outside of Philadelphia.
Okay.
So,
he's still got a little of his, his Eastern accent, you know.
Everyone says I speak funny
West
now.
Philadelphia, born and raised.
Yeah, the northeast suburbs of Bucks County.
Well, hey, I got one question before we go to break. How do the warnings and the warning system, how does that differ in Canada than it does here in the States, as far as, you know, we have here the watches and warnings and all those kinds of things? What is it, same, or is there some differences?
It's similar, but different.
Okay, thank you for that answer. That's very clear.
Like the warnings, and both countries have their warnings, and both countries have their specific warnings, and I think they're similar in that regard. What irks me about the Canadian warnings is they don't issue start-stop times. So they'll issue like a snowfall warning, which is, I think you're expecting, I think like 15 centimeters of snow in something like 12 or 18 hours. The criteria is a bit odd, but there won't be a start-stop time, and which to me is like, it's no brainer that there should be. Like it should, you know, like snow's going to start at 8 o'clock in St. John's, and, you know, the warning goes from 8 to midnight, and that's when you can expect the snow. So there's no start-stop times, and they do a lot of warnings as separate. When you're trying to broadcast, gets very annoying at times. And I know it's just the policy, but to me, like when we have snow and wind, like almost regardless of the snow amount, that should be like a winter storm warning when we're expecting, like, even if it's 6 inches of snow and you're expecting, you know, winds to be gusting 50, 60 miles an hour, like that should be a winter storm warning. But you'll get a snowfall warning and a wind warning for the same area, which to me, it's a lot to convey. And I think to our viewers, it's a lot to kind of digest at the same time. So I would like to see the warnings a bit more concise in Canada compared to the US, where I think they have the winter side of it pretty well covered.
Could you use that to your advantage? So if there's no start or stop time, can you be like, winter storm warning, January?
That's not a bad idea.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's like winter storm warning for Thursday.
Thursday.
When?
That's right.
Yeah.
Let
me tell you.
And that's what people always want to know. Like, I could put on a snowfall map on my Facebook page, and I could spend like hours making it, and everyone's like, when is it going to start here? When is it going to start there? That's the only thing people like really want to know is like the start stop times. Like almost the amount is like irrelevant, but start stop times seem to be very important.
Thank you for tuning in to the Stormfront Freaks podcast. You can watch our bi-weekly show live on youtube.com/stormfrontfreaks and download the audio version on your favorite podcast player. For links to our Patreon team of exclusive benefits, show notes, past shows, new videos, merchandise, and more, visit our website at stormfrontfreaks.com. While you're there, check out our interactive chaser radar from our friends at zoomradar.com. If you'd like to contact us with questions or make comments about the show, shoot us an email to questions@stormfrontfreaks.com or follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, or TikTok. Search for Stormfront Freaks. We'd love to hear from you. Join us next time and tell a friend about the Stormfront Freaks podcast.